Hello and welcome to episode number 77 of the WP Café show with me, Keith Devon, and my co-host, Mark Wilkinson. Today we're going to be talking, I think, mostly about hidden complexity in projects and a few other bits and pieces in our lives and in the general WordPress space. But first, thanks very much for joining us. If you're live with us on YouTube, we really appreciate it. Say hi in the comments. We love to know who's watching. And also just chat along, ask questions. We'll do our best. We'll keep an eye on comments as the show goes on. If you're joining us on the podcast or some other method, welcome along too. Great to have you as always. Mark, how's your week been?
Yeah, not bad. Hopefully not for everyone, but you're breaking up a little bit for me, Keith. But fingers crossed, it's just a glitch. Yeah, my week's been good. I've been building a new provider for job relay. So we're integrating with Workable, which is another job posting provider. So we had a client which wanted to use it, so we built it with them on board. And then we've kind of launched that this week, and so far, so good. It seems to be relatively successful, not had any glitches or anything, so that's been enjoyable to do, something new to get my teeth stuck into. So hopefully, lots more people want that integration, and they'll find us for it, but we'll see. But that was good to do. Yeah. Other than that, it's been all right. What about you?
Yeah, pretty good. Good week. Just lots of little bits and pieces. Little bit of project work, kind of client work, little bit of WordPress work, little bit of job relay work. So yeah, it's been good. It's been kind of busy. Some kind of businessy, developmenty stuff that we've been working on. So yeah, had a good week. I'm a football team won, so I'm always in a better mood after a couple of wins. So that's helped as well. So yeah, it's been good. It's been good. I'm just going to check. Is my am I coming through a bit clearer for you now, Mark?
Yeah, you seem okay. Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to do a little check on. I'll see what the service status is saying. No, it says it's all right. Cool. Hope it's clear enough for everybody else watching along. Let's jump
right.
in.
So, what we're getting stuck into today?
Yeah, complexity in projects. So this is one of the things that maybe hasn't gone so well in the last week or two, and it's a kind of conversation that keeps coming up for the two of us, and especially around taking on new work.
Yep.
And maybe especially around taking on new work of the type you haven't maybe done that exact thing before. So you're kind of confident that you can provide a solution, but you don't know exactly how long it's going to take. So you're kind of pressured a little bit into coming up with a price. You come up with that price based on, okay, so I think this feels reasonable and I think it will probably cover the time spent and all that kind of thing. And then afterwards it's like, oh yeah, I should have just listened to my gut, and this was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Or yeah, I think it's like different personality types. So, there's like more optimistic and more pessimistic people, and I think on this regard it's probably good to err on the side of pessimistic, but there's a balance, isn't there? Because if you're too pessimistic, you never do anything. If you're too optimistic, you always lose money. So
yeah, pessimist never does anything, and therefore that's kind of what you're around for. That's what you're in the position you're in for. That's what the client wants you to do. So it's difficult sometimes to deliver the stuff they want, without getting too much hidden complexities. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about this sort of stuff. When you get a project comes in and you have got, you reckon you can cover 90% of that spec, maybe a bit less, maybe 80% of that spec. You've done that before, you're confident with the process, but there is that small element of the project that you're thinking, I'm not sure, I've got ideas, but I'm not sure how we can do that. We could do it like this, we could do it like this, we could perhaps investigate that. And how do you go about quoting for that? Do you quote for that, or do you do some investigatory work?
Yeah.
Or it'd be interesting to hear what people do. So we've taken multiple approaches in the past, haven't we? Where we've we've sort of taken a stab at it and given it a good guesstimate as our time and value and so forth, and done that. We've also taken the approach where we go back to a client and say, hey, we're covered with this part of the project, but this part needs some investigation. So if you give us a couple of hours worth of a charge, if that makes sense, and if they're on a monthly retainer, we can usually take that out of the monthly retainer. We'll go away and investigate it. And at that point, we'll either be able to give you a firm quote once we've done that investigation, or we'll come back and say, I'm sorry, we can't do the job. But sometimes clients don't mind that because they've taken a small price to then get the information they need, or some don't like that at all because why am I paying for something that I'm never actually going to get back and so forth. And
I
think came to head this week, didn't it, where we'd done some work with maps and things, wasn't it? It's the Google Maps API type thing we were looking at, and it was one of those where we got like almost the way. So we gave a quote to the client. The client's done nothing wrong here, by the way. We're not more about the client because the client just literally followed everything we said. So we gave a quote to the client. They've agreed to that quote. We've pressed on with the work. Well, Keith pressed on with it. It was mainly Keith's work. Got it working, and then once it got into sort of a staging environment, it became clear that there were some issues with various different parts of it, and mainly unforeseen things. That you just don't. You can't think of everything when you're quoting and when you're speccing something out. So they cropped up. You went away. It took a while. We fixed them. Other things cropped up, and then you sat there now thinking, I wish I hadn't bothered taking this on because actually the complexity is probably like double or treble what we thought it was going to be in the first instance. So it's really difficult. How do we deal with those sort of things in the future? I think is what we've been trying to discuss, haven't we?
Exactly. And I think the more experienced a developer you are, the more wary you are, with this kind of stuff. But it's difficult because when a client comes to us and they want a bit of functionality, it can seem straightforward, definitely to them. Sometimes even to us, although, like I say, we are slightly more wary these days. And because we understand the complexity, like that it exists, we don't understand the complexity of that particular project at that moment, but we understand that these things do happen very frequently. Or we obviously want to account for that in the price that we give. But then sometimes it's much easier than you think it's going to be, and you get it done quite quickly. So you don't. It's a pricing problem more than anything else, because I know that I can deliver this project. I've got the skills to do it, and like he can say, I would need it to do this, this, and this isn't working, and that, like, fix that. I know I can do it. I just don't know how long it's going to take. And if, like, I gave a fixed price that I thought was reasonable at the time, I probably went slightly high. I think you thought it should have been higher, potentially.
I thought it should have been higher,
yeah, at the time. And it's just like it's come back to bite me, and now I'm like, oh, I want to finish it. I'm gonna finish it, and I want to do a good job. But it's all this polish at the end, and not just polish. It's like just things that we didn't ever think about, and you couldn't have reasonably been expected to think about without some kind of like proper pre-project process where you're like, right, let's just write down every single step of this like interface and like how it can go wrong.
Speaking of pre-project process, there's some comments which I want to come to. So Cameron says paid scoping, yes. Sam also says paid scoping. You win some, you lose some, so that's fine. And Elliot says write a technical spec, which I guess comes after the paid scoping. So I think my question back to the paid scoping question is that I often find, particularly in this example, that you almost have to do the thing to be able to scope it.
Yeah, I agree.
So in many ways, you've done 80% of the work to get to the point where you know the scope. So that's where it falls apart for me, because the scoping ends up so expensive. So that's a tricky one. I think scoping works for bigger projects, entire website builds where you can really spend a lot of time getting down to the nitty-gritty of the different parts of the project and what they'll entail. And then the paid part of that scoping is a reasonable amount of money. I think that works. But this particular project, it's adding a relatively small feature. Obviously, it's turned out much bigger than we thought in terms of complexity, but a relatively small feature to an existing project, and therefore paid scoping becomes a little bit more tricky. But I'm not against paid scoping at all. I think that's a very sensible suggestion, which is interesting. I think just coming back to what I was saying at the start, what I've been doing this week with the integration with the new partner provider, in many ways, at the start of that, I was in exactly the same situation. So I was like, I don't know how to do this. So I've had some ideas. I have an API. I've got some documentation I can read and so on, but I don't know how to do it. And I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do it. For me, the difference between that and what we were doing with this other project is that I can say to our client, who was more than happy to pay to get this integration off the ground because that's what they wanted. I can say to our client, well, I'm going to do this for X. Okay. If I can't do it, you don't pay. Because I know that whatever I deliver, I can then use again and again and again and again and again for this project or for this product going forward. Whereas when you're doing something in isolation, I just find you see that I'm never going to use this. I'm going to learn this thing that's going to be of benefit to this person or this company.
Yeah.
But then I'm never really going to do it again. So how do you price that part of it as well? It gets quite tricky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, hidden complexities. It's one of our, I don't know what the word is. It's something that we always struggle with when you're quoting. And I think the more you get down the sort of WordPress development or up the WordPress development ladder, maybe not down, this comes up more and more because you tend to be doing things that are more complex because they haven't been done before, because there's nothing out there that has them. So these things crop up more and more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tricky because it makes me feel like we're kind of reluctant to take that stuff on sometimes, and I don't want to feel like that. And it is just because it's a pricing problem. I think the paid scoping thing is really interesting, but say it's like your gut feel is that this is like a 1,500 quid piece of work, right? I don't know. Like, are you going to ask for how much upfront? I don't know. Like, 250 quid. Maybe not. And the other thing I think you mentioned there that I think is really important is that some of this complexity we wouldn't have even caught if we'd done a paid scoping exercise. We would have assumed that we could have done certain things that actually turned out to be very difficult, and we would have missed some of the things that have tripped us up in the end. We would have
comes back to the paid scoping for this project in particular would be doing it.
Yeah,
in a way, it would be doing the bulk of it to find the issues. That's
exactly. And like with that API stuff, that you were doing, you kind of needed to do the work, like you said. Like doing the work is the scoping. So it's like, you have to start using the API really to understand if you're going to be able to solve the problems you're trying to solve with it.
But I think when I was doing the API stuff, I came across some problems with like the rate limiting, wasn't it? There was like, I was going to end up having to send too many requests per whatever the limit was. Just with the way the API works, if you had a lot of jobs in your system and you want to pull all those jobs, the number of requests you'd have to do within a time scale would have gone over the rate limit. So I had to then build something that stopped that happening. But with that, I was happy to do that over and above because I knew that the benefit to going forward for us as a business and a product is worth it.
Yeah.
But when it's an isolated project, that becomes a lot more difficult. You're like, well, I've quoted this much. I've already spent this much time.
Yeah.
And then you sat there thinking, I've got to get this finished. I've told the client it's going to be ready, reasonably, and so on. And that just becomes very frustrating.
The other interesting thing, just reading Elliot's comment again, they're like, write a technical spec. I partly really agree with that. And we've done that. We've done paid scoping sessions before, and the kind of deliverable is a fairly detailed technical specification. We've done a lot of that, and it's been really, really, really handy on a lot of projects. Just thinking about this Maps project in particular, if I had done that, I may have tied myself up into committing to certain features and workflows that I actually couldn't deliver. Whereas because the brief was quite loose, it's just like show jobs on a map kind of thing, basically. Because there were some technical challenges, I hadn't committed myself to anything, if that makes sense. So I could just find the right solution through the process, and by talking to the client saying, look, it turns out we can't actually do this, or there's this limitation, but here's an option. Whereas if I'd had this kind of rigid technical specification, I would have felt under a lot of pressure to like deliver that exact thing. Otherwise, what's the point in it? I know you can be flexible, you can go back and forth and discuss things with the client, but yeah, it's just again, it's a balance thing, and it's an it depends thing, and it's why this kind of works
right. I think you'd always want a technical spec of like, we're going to deliver these things. But in this particular instance, and again, because it's a smaller piece of work, like that would take a long time to write, which has to be charged for. So the scope of the project just gets more and more bigger because you're having to do all that work as well. So I think you're right, though. I think if you had a technical spec, even if the technical spec was like, we're going to show jobs on a map and they're going to look like pins or whatever, at least you could go back and say, well, we've done that. Like, I know you don't like this and this and this about it, but we have actually done what we said we were going to do. Maybe that's the thing. But we just like helping customers, so we're probably a bit too generous sometimes.
Maybe. And that's the other kind of like pressure that you're under, because sometimes like we're inclined to say, we don't know how to do that. Like, we've never done this before. We kind of think we can do it, but we're not sure. We're probably not the right and the ideal team to be taking this on, but we are their web team. Like, and so there's that pressure to like be the go-to guys, because that's what we're there for, sort of. You know, that's what
I agree.
Relationship's about. So it's really difficult. You feel this kind of like, oh, I want to help them, not just for the money, not just for anything else. It's just because they rely on us to be able to provide these kind of solutions.
Yeah. And you keep
saying,
well,
I think we end up taking jobs probably that we shouldn't, because we feel that pressure.
I think you're right, but I do think this particular job is within our...
This one is.
What's the word? Like, it's not within our skill set because we didn't know how to do it, but it's within our skill set in that it's comfortable with the sort of skills that you were using to deliver it. I don't know whether that makes any sense, but it's not completely out of the realms of, you know, for example, we're not saying, oh, we're going to build an iOS app. Like, we know what that is completely and utterly out of our comfort zone. We wouldn't have a clue. That's completely different. Whereas the tools, resources, languages, you know, the things you're using are within our skill set in this one. So I think that's probably not the case, but you know, it's interesting. Let's have a look at some comments. Sam says, if you want this type of work, then there's an element of R&D and learning which should be allocated to offset the cost. Does
Sam mean that should be the R&D and learning is paid for or isn't paid for? I can't quite work it out from that comment.
Yeah, and he also said before that, I should have put this one first, are you working on projects with too many unknowns that you've not worked with before? Is this the sort of work that you want?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a good question. I think, is it the sort of work we want? Ideally, no. I want to be able to do exactly the things that I know how to do and charge a lot of money for them. But actually, yeah, I think we do. Like, I want to learn new stuff. I want to push the boundaries of what I know. And clients want that from us. That's why they've hired us, I think, to do these things that they want specific to them, that are not these generic off-the-shelf solutions that deliver stuff. So if we continuously turn around and say, well, no, we can't do that, no, we can't do that, there will be a time when the client says, well, you're useless then. Let's just go and get someone else who can do these things. Yeah, so that's why I think there's a bit of pressure to deliver on these things as well.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll come in after.
Sorry, Derek says, I agree with Mark. Big difference to when you're working on something you'll use again. If it's something I'll never use again, I tend to price higher. I think I'd agree with that. Is that fair on the client, though? I don't know. But I don't disagree with you. The spec, Elliot says, the spec doubles up as the scoping doc and avoids scope creep. Yeah, we were saying that. I think that's fair enough. And then Derek, I like that honesty, Keith. I've done this exact thing before. That's a great place to start the conversation.
I haven't done this exact thing before.
Sorry, I haven't done. Yeah, we're always honest with the customer. We'll definitely. if we can't do something or we've never done it, we'll tell them. And then Sam I think this just clarified Keith's question. To be clear, if you quoted £100 and you should have charged 200, there was a lot of useful learning that you can then take forward. Then I put that 100 down, right? So it's basically you're not charging the client, you're taking that extra learning that you can move forward onto the business. But that comes back to then what I was saying about, are you going to ever use this thing again with other customers?
Yeah. We may well do Google Map work again in the future. We almost definitely will. But by the time we do that, I've probably forgotten what I've done.
Yeah.
so is it useful? Is it useful R&D? Am I taking anything forward? I'm not sure I am, but I get what Sam's saying there.
Which actually brings up another question, which is not on our list to talk about. And we were talking about this before. Is we had a customer, didn't we, this week, with a WordPress install, and they wanted to do something. We'd done it before for another customer, and could I find that work? I couldn't even find which customer it was, and it took me about an hour to find out where this piece of work was. And that comes down to how do you document like the little snippets and solutions that you've had for other projects? I would love to know if anyone's got solutions for that. Where do you put them? How are they searchable? Because we were both saying we need a bank of these things that we can just go out and search. What we're trying to do, search. Oh yeah, we did that for that's there, and that's how it works. I think that would be super important. But so if anyone's any solutions to that, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's something that we should probably be better at now. I think because we're doing all these little custom,
for sure.
Like with Job Relay and with WordPress, we do these little kind of customization functions because obviously you've built everything in a very filterable way. So we've got like WordPress customizations plugins on loads of websites, but there's no way to search that because that's code that's on a customer's website. So yeah, we don't document or store that stuff in a easy to find way. There's a couple of suggestions there. Elliot says GitHub gists, which we've used before. Good idea. Snippets Lab on iOS. Ooh,
I presume that's a phone app, is it? iOS. But yeah, interesting. Look at that
on your phone. Yeah. So maybe we'll check that out. What we just did, because we just did one recently, didn't we? We're like, let's not forget this because this is something we're going to definitely need again. And we just created a page on the website and just stuck it in there.
Yeah.
In our documentation section. So at least it'll be searchable on the website going forward.
Fingers crossed. We'll find it again. It's just like making sure you've got the right keywords and title on the post page so that when you search for that thing, it comes up, obviously.
And to search there in the first place. Like you kind of have to remember that you've put stuff there. Like if you're constantly using one solution, like everything like this goes in a GitHub gist, then that's fine. You go there and you look there. But for us at the moment, we're not kind of like fully committed and we don't have a bank of stuff that we're like, that is where we're going to go and search for code that we've used in the past.
Add that to the list. We need a go-to place.
Yeah, it's tricky stuff. I think the website makes sense for it, but
I do because actually it's stuff that other people might want to use.
Yeah,
like developers and stuff. So it makes sense to put it there, and then if anyone sends a support email and asks for it, we can just link to it, can't we? Say, hey, we've done this.
It could even be an embedded gist on the website, so it's in both places.
I don't think we need the gist though, because with the blocks, they look really cool.
Yeah, the syntax highlighting and everything. Yeah,
and it's all on the page then.
So, and we can tag and categorize them and all that kind of good stuff. But
we can. Let's move on. From hidden complexity and various other ailments that we've got to. I'm going to jump ahead one, and I'm going to go with WordPress London. It's back.
It's good.
So if you didn't know, WordPress London have released a new meetup, which I have forgotten the date. It's the 29th of Feb.
I think it is the 29th of Feb.
And it is an in-person event as well. So it's like a traditional WordPress meetup. They're going to be running a couple of talks, I believe, on AI in WordPress. I don't know who or what they are yet. I don't think they're on the page.
No.
I'm sure they're coming up. But I saw it in my inbox and I was like, oh, interesting. You know, kind of like a traditional event in person. He's back on the calendar. That's got to be good. So well done to, I think it's Paul and who was on the email, who's who's going to be doing the running of it. So that's great to see. Hopefully get lots of people signed up, lots of people going. I won't be able to get down, but I think you're going, aren't you, Keith? So
I'm going to try to go, yeah.
Be nice to catch up with some old folks that I've not seen for a while.
Yeah, I had a look at the kind of attendees list, and it was really early on. I think there was only maybe like less than 10, and it was like a lot of familiar faces. So that'd be nice to catch up with some folk again, definitely. And hopefully we can kind of kickstart the community in this part of the world again, because it's lacking. But yeah.
I know we've got some watchers, listeners that run events or have done in the past. That I just wondered if those events are carrying on. Have they stopped? Have they got issues? It'd be nice to see what's happening with other places around the world, around the UK in particular. I know there was events like in Manchester, Bristol used to have one, didn't they? Cheltenham. I'm looking at Elliot's picture there. Cheltenham, yeah. Cheltenham had one. Where else did they have one? Obviously London. They had a few over in other side of the country, didn't they? I can't remember where they were though.
Yeah,
but there's a few there anyway. So
Leeds.
Be nice to see them start up.
Yep, absolutely.
Leeds, yes, yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, nice to see some more.
I just wanted to give a bit of an update on my WordPress.com adventure. So that site I'm building for a friend of mine. So I did a bit more work on that yesterday. And I actually had so weird. So if you watched last week's show, I was complaining about all this kind of stuff. I couldn't do X, couldn't do Y, couldn't do full width blocks, couldn't do this, that, and the other. And I logged on yesterday to try to. I was like, right, I'm going to try to sort some of this stuff out. Otherwise, I'm just going to ditch WordPress. Not like forever for all time, but like for this project.
Yeah.
And everything was just working, and I was just like, what on earth is going on? So like I was expecting to go in and having to fix all these problems, and the responsive views are all like text flowing off the sides, and it was working. So I am baffled.
Maybe someone in WordPress.com has been watching our show and thought, I'll fix all these problems just for Keith.
There were some .com people that were like interacting with my tweets. X's, whatever I call posts on X. So who knows? I did think that. I was like, have they just got to fix the theme?
Who knows? Maybe.
Anyway, so that was good. So most of that stuff was kind of working again.
That's good.
The frustration now, it was again like sitting with my friend, and he's like, "Oh, can you do this?" He's like, "I want like a floating button." That's just going to be like the main call to action for the site is like schedule a consultation. No, sorry.
Like it sticks in the bottom right or something. Or
yeah. I was like, not.
Is not a plugin for that?
Exactly. Probably. I don't know, but do I want a plugin for that? I don't know. Anyway, so like again, these kind of sort of simple requests. I was like, you can't just do that. We need more. We need to download stuff, or I need to do something myself. I could have probably just done it with some custom CSS in the customizer. Anyway, there was that, and then he was like, "I want to make the header sticky." I was like, "Oh, we could definitely do that." So I go to the group, the header template, click on the group, position sticky, get in, did it, didn't work, isn't sticky. I was like, maybe that's because it's sitting inside a group and it needs to be outside the group. So I changed that. No, it still doesn't work. Tried it on a bunch of stuff. Doesn't work.
Did you wrap it in a group and then try and
exactly? And I'll probably refresh it tomorrow and it'll be working. Maybe this is all caching problems. I honestly don't know. But again, just kind of frustrating. There's an option for it and it doesn't work. And I'm just like, God damn. If this was Elementor, I don't love Elementor, but if this is Elementor and I'd said, give me a sticky header, it would be a sticky header.
Yeah. I was reading some of the responses to your tweet about this, and a lot of people, and I kind of agree, they were saying like the theme is doing this, or your theme is doing this. And I wonder I said like, what is the point of the theme? Because if your theme's just interfering with what like core WordPress is outputting, then surely that like shouldn't be allowed almost,
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know whether it is in this instance, but people were saying like your theme is setting padding on or something, and then you didn't want that, so it was stopping you from taking it. I think a lot of people
didn't really understand the question and just kind of jump in with solutions to problems I haven't even raised. Someone had said there was like there's like vertical padding on your theme or something. I was like, I'm talking about horizontal problems, not like so.
Right.
I mean, anyway, yeah, not all the responses were very useful, as is the norm on social networks. But yeah, I do appreciate people trying to help. And if someone did magically go and fix the theme, then thank you very much. Really appreciate it. But yeah, so we're getting there. The site's looking. It's looking
definitely.
pretty good.
Elliot, it's just that users' global settings should override theme settings.
Yeah, but you don't have settings for everything.
Right. Sorry, I think I'm losing you, Keith. I might be talking over you.
It's okay. Yeah,
that's literally what I was just going to say. Yeah, you don't have settings for everything, so sometimes you can't override things because the settings isn't like a mirror of theme JSON, so you can't kind of override stuff, which would be maybe what we need is a like paste your own theme JSON in here to override the one that's like defined in the theme, so you can just like change it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. You could make a plugin.
Yeah, so it's literally like a copy in the edit, like in the old plugin editor files. You just got a copy, and then you can just make edits and change it and do that. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm not sure. We keep losing Keith, whether he's still here or not. I'm not sure. But the last thing that I had on my list to chat about was something I found out yesterday. So I was working on a site and I wanted to upload a plugin. So I did my usual thing. It was one of these customizations plugins that we use for like RecPress and Jobber, just to change a few things. And what we did was I created the file, I zipped it, and then I went to upload it in WordPress in the upload, plugin, add new, upload. And then I got this incompatible archive thing. And I was like, all right, that's weird. Maybe it's just this website. So I sent the plugin to the client and they uploaded it and sorted it out. So then today I was on another website, did the same thing, get the same error. So I was like, oh, that's weird because it's two different websites. So I did a bit of research and apparently something has changed in WordPress 6.4.3. And if you zip a file on a Mac with like right click compress, it won't let you upload it in WordPress. I don't know why.
No.
So I was like, oh, that's great, isn't it? So this particular article, which I can link in the show notes, it was actually on Cadence WP Help Center. I presume someone else has asked the same question. They suggest if you use your terminal on your Mac to do the zipping, it works. And I can confirm that. I zipped it with the terminal instead of right-click and compress, and it worked. So just something I found and thought, that is weird because I've never seen it before. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but there you go. It might save you 5 minutes or 5 hours, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll wrap it up. Apparently, you're absolutely loud and clear for everyone else, so it must be just me. So that's good.
Yeah, something weird going on.
Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. As always, if you haven't liked, please like us, like the video, do subscribe, ring the bell, and you get a notification as to when we release new live videos. We're usually really slow at putting them out. Actually, obviously, it's usually a Friday morning, and I was like, oh my god, we haven't scheduled the thing in. So, but we're always at 1:30 on a Friday, unless other things get in the way. And other than that, we'll see you next Friday. Thanks very much for joining us.
See you soon. Bye.